So we'll begin with a smudge. And we're gathered here to share in this time of reflection and remembering for the Indigenous women, girls and Two-Spirit that have been lost to the ways that we have been affected in our communities. And so this affects all Indigenous people to be able to progress and carry on their stories, their knowledge, their traditions, their family. The women are the bearers of these teachings. And oftentimes they're the ones that are training the youth, the young people, guiding them and being a source of light and hope, giving them perspective and understanding and the knowledge that there is power in women's words. And so we give thanks for that today. We give thanks for coming together in this way. And we'll offer a prayer as we smudge. And in our way. Creator, one who placed us here in this creation, in this world, with a purpose, with an understanding that we are all connected, that we depend on one another for our well-being. We pray that you are with us as we seek to understand and as we seek to reach out to those in our communities that are struggling and need help. Pray for those that are vulnerable. We pray for those that have poor spirits at this time. Pray that you would be with them during their struggles. Pray that you would help us all to change the way that we do things, to change the way that we are. We might help and be one together in a more productive society that recognizes the equality of all. Jesus Christ, Amen. And so for the time that we are gathered here, I'd just like to thank everyone who takes part in these events, even afterwards, and the words that we share, the hope and the dreams of those that remain, and the families, their need for justice, their need for closure, their need for answers, their need for support. We remember that we are all God's creatures, and part of our work, part of our livelihood, part of our purpose here is to reach out and to be one in our community, to help one another, to support one another where needed. And we need to do much better in our work to ensure that everyone is safe and everyone is feeling loved and supported. And so as we begin with our smudge, we talk about the presence of life and well-being. We learn to understand that there are challenges and hopes that we bring forward as we shine a light on a new day and begin to think again about what is our purpose. So here we acknowledge the lands upon which we reside in what is now Treaty 7 territory, the homeland that these lands represent, our people displaced, cast out, and moved along. We know that in our history we have changed relationships and set aside others and taken on an adversarial path with our neighbors. We must undo this legacy systemically and interpersonally in order to find our way into a better path. We recognize that this is the land of people such as the Yarhe Nakota, the Nitsitapi, and the Tsuut'ina, and the people of Métis Region number 3. We recognize that each has a unique history that ties them to this land and that binds us all together in a relationship. As we gather here for the Urban Indigenous Circle, we remember that we are to recommit to the TRC calls to action and the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People as we seek justice, love with kindness, and walk humbly with Creator upon creation. It is a testament to the virtues of our communities that we remain a peaceable place in our communities, and that we will find a better way to recognize and support one another.
To pray, you open your whole self, to sky, to earth, to sun, to moon, to one whole voice that is you. And know that there is more that you can't see, can't hear, can't know except in moments steadily growing. And in languages that aren't always sound, but other circles of motion. Like Eagle, that Sunday morning, over Salt River, circled in blue sky, in wind, swept our hearts clean with sacred wings. We see you, see ourselves, and know that we must take the utmost care and kindness in all things. Breathe in, knowing we are made of all this, and breathe, knowing we are truly blessed because we were born and die soon within a true circle of motion. Like Eagle, rounding out the morning inside us, we pray that it will be done in beauty, in beauty.
And in that prayer, in that recognition that we are connected to creation, the Eagle Song is part of our calling into creation. We talk about the cycle of the day, we talk about the beginning of the morning star coming into our world, opening a light into creation. In that first song, that first sound, the song of the eagle that takes our prayers, remembers who we are, and finds that light of day as an important part. There are various traditions around how we see those memories and how we connect to creation. And at this time, we bring those forward as a reminder that in this work that we do to remember our sisters, to remember our families, there are many who have taken time to advocate for others and to work with others to support them and give them hope and give them love and give them direction, bring us to a better understanding of what is going on in the lives of those people who are disenfranchised, people who are struggling, people who are in need, people who are suffering with abuse or mental health issues and need our ongoing support and guidance to bring them a better day. And so for that, we are thankful for the contribution of women's voices that take part in this struggle daily.
October 4th, we commemorate the lives of Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit people who have been lost, missing, or murdered. We honor their lives and we lament the loss of their loved ones. We offer support to their families. We offer prayers and words of comfort for their spirits.
Well, the history of Sisters in Spirit and the Sisters in Spirit Vigil Walk was actually started in 17 years ago by the Native Women's Association of Canada. Since then, it has flourished to an international campaign and initiative primarily to raise awareness about the issue of missing and murdered Indigenous women in Canada. This issue of missing and murdered Indigenous women Two-Spirit is an epidemic in Canada. I think we all need to act in some way to ultimately reduce those numbers or to end violence against Indigenous women and all peoples in the future. There are many ways to support the Sisters in Spirit Vigil. One is I would recommend reading The Calls to Justice, which is the final report from the National Inquiry on Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women Two-Spirit. If you can, read the document. We ask you to use your privilege as a non-Indigenous person, as a white person, to talk to the governments, your MLAs, your municipal leaders, and the federal government to take the calls to action and to implement them. This is about the future of our children. This is for our grandmothers. This is for our sisters, our aunts, and anyone who is at risk. We need to save lives, and we need to do this together as a caring and loving community.
Oki, Nagana go Meko Chase Chase Maki. My name is Red Thunderwood. My English name is Michelle. I use she and her pronouns, and I'm honored to be here on Treaty 7 territory. I am lucky enough to be a co-chair to the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women, Girls, and Two-Spirit group here, this committee here in Calgary. I'm honored to walk this road with so many folks that have unfortunately had to deal with this issue. I encourage folks to come and support the families. They need to see that other folks support what they're going through and that they want justice as well. We have elections coming up municipally. Yeah, I encourage you to talk to any candidate that's talking about wanting to represent you and ask them, what do they know about Indigenous people? What do they know about Orange Shirt Day? What do they know about missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit? And see where they're on. Because if we're going to work together and be a community and work on reconciliation, we have to work together.
And so one of our reverends who was newly appointed to United Church, Reverend Deb Anderson Pratt, offered her words here at this time to share with our group. Deb Anderson Pratt, who's the new minister at in Regina, just graduated from the Sandy Soto Center as part of the program there, and sharing some of the experiences and the things that she knows from her practice and from growing up in these situations.
Hi, my name is Deb Anderson, Reverend Deb Anderson Pratt. I was just ordained on Sunday, September 27th, and I'm from the George Gordon First Nation. I'm 60 years old. I'm very young and just getting into the ministry, serious ministry. Not that I haven't done it already. I work for the Regina Native Ministry. I've been here since 2014. My sister Pat is the historian in our family, and she found information about our 5 times great generation grandfather who worked for the church. I think it was the Anglican church at that time. And he went from village to village visiting people for the church. And what do you call him? A soldier from the fort came to see him to tell him that there was a sickness going around the villages and they wanted him to go check on the people. So he went, and he was worried about his friend. And the first village he came to, everybody was dead from the sickness. So he lined them all up in a row, but he didn't bury them. He just laid them all together in a row. And then he went to the next village, and again, that whole village was wiped right out. But he didn't take the time to bury them. He just went to the third village where his friend lived. And all he found there was a little girl. So he took her to the fort and left her there. And he made his way back home. And she got this information from journals he wrote about his work. And she was saying that reading the 3 journals that they had on him, from him, was like reading a book, the way he wrote, describing all the landscape and everything. So he made his way home. And when he got home to the village, everybody was okay. And his friend's daughter lived in the village that he lived in. And he went to let her know about her father. But she was married to a Scottishman, and they didn't really live right in the village. They kind of lived outside the village. And he went to let her know about her father. But when he got to their cabin, there was nobody around. So he looked around for her, and he found her laying in the creek, face down, with a hatchet or axe in her head. So he buried her, and he didn't bother going to tell the soldiers at the fort about it, because he figured that the Scottish guy was already long gone and that they wouldn't do anything anyway. You know, and that's just like, that's how our people were for many, many years, just accepting what happened to them. And it's good today to see that doesn't go on anymore, that our people are fighting for our women and our girls and demanding to know what happened to them. You know, when I was in Sandy Soto Spiritual Center training, we went to see those moccasin flats they had, the tour of the moccasin flats that were made for the missing and murdered women. And my sister Fanny Spence, we spent that whole day together, because I felt like it didn't affect me. And so I was there to support her because she had lost a sister and they still haven't found her. And when I got into that place where they had the flats, it all of a sudden just hit me. It did involve me. A few years previous, my daughter had gone missing for 4 months. Nobody would tell me what happened to her or if they knew where she was. And I didn't hear from her for 4 months. And I remember just crying every night and praying to God to keep her safe. And even though I missed her and didn't know where she was, God let me know in my heart that she was okay. And she finally contacted me. So yeah, I was affected by it. And but I was still able to comfort my sister Fanny, you know, and she in turn comforted me in my realization, you know. So it's a long history of our women being murdered and nothing being done about it. But it's wonderful to see that our people are finally standing up and saying, no, it's not okay. It's not okay for our women to continue going missing and being murdered and nothing done about it. Just recently, about 3 weeks ago, a young 17-year-old girl was found murdered. And there was, I haven't heard anything more on it since they first reported it on the news. I haven't heard any news of whether they're investigating it or they're just letting it slide, you know. And she was a young lady my girl knew, my youngest daughter, you know, and my youngest daughter talks a lot about her friends going missing or being found murdered, and then she doesn't hear about them again, you know. Like, really, how much are the police doing to protect our women and our girls? By the news that I see and hear, there's really nothing being done unless the family steps up themselves and demands information and demands that their daughter be looked out for, or information on their whereabouts or on their murder. It starts with the family being strong enough to stand and fight for them. Otherwise, they would just go unnoticed, other than that one news clip, you know. But I still every day watch my Facebook feeds, and there's always a young lady gone missing or a woman murdered, and that's all I hear about them.
A sharing time, a place and a time to offer support before the happenings of today, and a time to reflect on some of that journey and some of the self-healing, some of the self-care that's needed, especially at this time when it seems like there's a lot of negative, there's a lot of issues around our healthcare, our health, our healthiness, our mental health, that we don't have a lot of facility for, and we don't have our traditional ways of dealing with this, as we discussed in some of these. Teresa is a Nietzsche trainer and so she is a contract trainer for the Nietzsche Institute and advisor for True North Aid as a knowledge keeper. So welcome, Teresa, and welcome to your remembrances for this Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women Day, Sisters in Spirit Day. And I know that you have also a story about your friend who went missing.
The Gunchawa Ambawashte, Miach Wagia Wia Washte, Minitni Wia. Good day. My name is Teresa Snow. My given names are Pretty Eagle Woman and Cold Water Woman. I just shared the link again. So I think that's Lucy. Lucy from Nietzsche, one of my classmates. And she's still taking the course there. So I'm pretty sure that's Lucy on that came on when I shared the stream. So that's good to see. Yeah, a lot of different things as we move forward and take the day to remember and think about those that are affected by missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, peoples. And so for me, I think a lot of it started back in 2014 when my best friend was going through a lot of issues. Addictions and different things in her life that she was coming to terms with. And in 2015, she had gone missing, and she's been missing since 2015. And I wanted to better understand the spiral of what happened to her and why she fell into the hole that she fell into. And so an opportunity came up to take training at Nietzsche Institute which is in St. Albert, North Edmonton, just north of Edmonton. And so I was able to secure funding and do my training there and learn about addictions and how it impacts Indigenous people. And the way that it's done is within using a Western context, but also implementing an Indigenous part to it. And so for me, it was really informative. It really brought a lot of knowledge for me to understand why our people are so caught up in addictions, why we're at where we are in communities, and where I myself have been in addictions and understanding myself. And I think for me, that's been the biggest role in understanding how I was in addictions. My addictions were eating, shopping, and relationships. And so understanding that now, I understand myself better and taking what I can and what roles and what things I can do for self-care and boundaries. And it helped me to understand and also grieve the loss of my best friend that's missing still, Misty, and also with my girls, because she stepped in our Indigenous teachings. Our sisters are mothers to our kids. And so her being that mother to my girls, there's been that void for them because my girls really looked up to her and depended on her. And there were certain things that she would step in and do if I, as a mother, wasn't able to do those things. And so it's helped me to understand myself better, my community when things happen, and but also to bring that awareness for our people. And with that, I was able to go forth with that knowledge and develop programs for other communities, but also develop my own program, a workshop that I do, and we create ribbon skirts or dolls that help heal the inner child, and then coloring, which is art therapy. And so this is a award I won at Nietzsche, and we did a short documentary about it called My Blood Memory is Couture. And so I think it's a very intense topic because we have so many of our women, of our people missing, and nothing is really being done about it. We keep feeling stallmates or things holding us back when we try to do things, especially working with the police, working with victim services, different groups, our chief and councils, allies who want to help. And so bylaws, bringing in laws. We had a recent case here last year of another ethnic group driving into the community and trying to kidnap little girls. And they were on their quads, and the little girls were able to get away because they knew what area they were in, what terrain, and how to get through that. And so we just see these just ongoing increased amount of ways of human trafficking and child trafficking that come in and that do impact our women and our two-spirited people. And so with that, when I'm doing the training for Nietzsche, I'm talking about addictions training, but in that too, we have to look at drug trafficking and human trafficking, because that goes hand in hand with each other. We see that a lot in communities, and as they had said earlier on the video, and they shared that a lot of them coming into the communities to an urban area, they're going to be shell shocked. They're not going to have the awareness. They're not going to have the skills, have the confidence to go out and get things, or have the support. And so they'll run into the wrong supports. And if you look at our history, we have a dismantled history, one that was made of dissemination of our kinship, our identity, our teachings. And so all of that is lost. And a young Indigenous person going into an urban setting without supports is not necessarily going to make it, because they're already going in with what little things they have. And to go in to a huger place population that's mosaic of all groups, they're basically fighting for survival. And they've already been fighting for survival out in their community. So it's just a pilot of a pilot project. It's a small project of one project that isn't going to work because the resources aren't there. And so when we return to the teachings with the language, the crafts, the artwork, the outdoor activities, the land-based teachings, when we have those, we can instill that in the youth so that they have a better toolkit for what they're going to be as adults. We can prepare them so that they can walk forward with confidence, so that they can take pride in wearing their outfits, in wearing a ribbon shirt, in wearing a ribbon skirt, and saying who they are, who their traditional name is, acknowledging their spirit. And we have a lot of work to do. And this is a good start with McDougall. Yesterday we did a Women's Wellness Day, and it was really amazing to see all the women that came out and came together, and they needed that time, because we know with COVID, the mental health aspect is really getting to people. There's the second wave that's going to be coming through, and people's mental abilities of coping are getting either triggered, they're not working because it's been going on so long. They need a refresher and to reminder of what things are there, what resources are there. Prayer and faith is always the utmost first thing we fall back to, and it's our foundation. And so for the church, McDougall, to host this is really awesome and beautiful, because it's part of our traditions and who we are. So
thank you. I'm gonna take a second here to share that.
One of the legends that I heard about the Big Dipper was the Cheyenne one, and it was about a girl who was really gifted in her regalia making and her beadwork. She had a dream about 7 brothers, and so she created these items for them and told her parents and went to go look for them. She found them and lived with them and was happy with them. Next, the Buffalo Nation came, and they wanted her to live with them because she was so gifted in her work. And her brothers said no, and they kept refusing. And then they finally came again asking for her. And the youngest brother took an arrow that he had and shot it into a tree. And the tree grew, and they jumped on the tree, climbed it to get away from the Buffalo Nation. And then finally they jumped off into the stars because they wanted to live together forever, and thus became the Big Dipper. The Gunchawa Ambawashte of Miech Minithni Huya. So my given names are Pretty Eagle Woman and Cold Water Woman, and my English name is Teresa. With my parents, understanding the historical impacts that we endured from residential school and colonization. They tried to best teach us by letting us visit mentors. And one of the mentors that I visited was a lady from Standing Rock, Marion Rawlinson, who lived in Arizona. And so she taught me the gift of making the star blanket. She had a sewing room, and when you walked in on the left side, she had like 4 sewing machines, and then she had her tables for cutting, and then on the right she had all this bolts and bolts of material, and I was just in awe because she had all these things, and it was just so beautiful. The next day our parents said pack up, so we thought we're going to a new motel and going to go somewhere else and visit. And then they brought us back to her house. And then they said, okay, you can get off. And we were like, what? Like, what are we doing? And here they were letting us stay with her, and she taught us about the star blanket. And so that was really amazing, because that was the way they helped us to have that foundation for identity and learning skills. And so we stayed with her, and what she shared with us is the stars. We understand that, but each star, if you look at it, it's actually like a medicine wheel too, in the 4 quadrants of lifespan of a human being. So the infant, youth, adult, and elder. And within that star has all those little stars. And so those would all represent different things that we would achieve in our lifetime, or our lifespan of that being a youth and coming into a teenager and learning who we are. And so those all followed within that. And that's why we would have the star blanket. And when we're gifted with that, that's acknowledging that we're star people. Sometimes what they'll do when they're receiving, the girls are becoming women, they may get a new dress. And so they'll be gifted with that new dress once they're done their ceremony, and they'll help make that dress. And so that'll be like their new identity, and if they get a new name, that'll come along with that and getting the new dress. And it's just a way of empowering them and giving that the identity and belonging. So when you look at the back of the dress on the lady's belt, you'll see different items on there. So one will be the knife case that they have to carry their knives. The next will be the awl. It's a long skinny piece, and they have their awl in there to help mend things like the moccasins or dresses. And then they'll have a little square pouch, which is for the flint to start a fire. They'll have that in there. And then there's another long piece that helps to carry wood. So they would tie that up. It performed an aspect. There was a reason why we had it, in the way it was designed and how it served a purpose, because we were always on the go, making things, fixing things, and we would have that on the outfit, and it would just help us because we were resilient people, we were resourceful and always traveling. And so they had that on the dresses it was something all the girls would have, all the ladies would have. It was part of their outfit. The dresses that I've made for Arizona and Canyon are really special. It was my way of connecting with them because they helped design it and help make it. And I think that's one of the important things we can do as parents or caregivers to connect with our youth and give them that support, and also let them help design and help be part of the creation and ask questions, and then they learn why. And support that knowledge, because it's transference of knowledge that goes into dance, and that transfers into their spirit too. And so that creates resilience. So I'm really glad that they get to do this and learn about it, and that they'll carry it on and they'll share it too with others and share the story. There's individuals who I'll go to who have different gifts that they can give her, if it's with cooking or with creating things, or just their mannerism, if they're a kind person, a giving person, a thoughtful person. I know who those individuals are that I'll be going to them and asking, doing the protocol and asking for them to help with my daughter, to help lead her in her next journey.
Those issues that affect many women's lives, and that we are seeking a way to balance our connection to one another and to our communities. We find a way to express that hope through our cultural memory and through the work of our people. And so thank you for Teresa for taking part today, and for the beautiful words in that video, but also your story that you shared about your friend, about some of the issues confronting the women, and the work that you've done in wellness and in helping community members, not just in our community, but in many other communities throughout Alberta and Saskatchewan, other areas that you've visited and worked with. There's a necessary connection there that people need to make about how important our culture is, how important it is to remember, and how important it is to practice what we believe. And so for this time, we thank you for being here, and we will end with our closing prayer, which is our stony prayer of the Lord's Prayer. Jesus Christ, Amen. And so thank you.